All right, what's going on, Freedom Revival fam? I hope you're excited for another Candidate Connect. Here we are. We're bringing out one of the candidates by the name of Jonathan Peck. We are looking forward to the opportunity to connect with him and get you guys comfortable with him. As you know, we have just produced our first voter guide from the Freedom Revival team, and we are attempting to lead you guys toward the candidates who love liberty and freedom here in San Diego County. And most of you might be like, wait a second. There are candidates in San Diego County that love liberty and freedom? Absolutely. Don't think that everybody's a leftist crazy person here in San Diego. There are great patriots here in the county that are doing all that they can to produce liberty. So, before I go too much further, let's go and dream. And let's break down exactly why we're doing this. So, Freedom Revival was birthed. What's up, Britt? How are you?
Hey, let's go. I'm so excited.
All
I'm
right.
excited. Let's go.
All right, so Freedom Revival, real quick, backstory was birthed around January when we realized there's a need for liberty, the church to get engaged in politics. We have to do something. We can't sit back anymore. We have to find what it means to be an American and understand that and preserve the republic. And so the Freedom Revival was birthed out of that. And so this Candidate Connect is just an arm of Freedom Revival attempting to educate the public with quality candidates. And tonight we're going to get an opportunity to connect with one of those candidates.
Did you tell everyone how they can download the voter guide?
Nope, go ahead. You want to do that?
Yeah, so freedomrevival.org, you head there and it's massive right there. As soon as you hit our website, there's a download button right below it. And we made this downloadable for you to have complete access to it. So we want you to download it, print it out. This is where the boots on the ground thing happens.
Yeah,
we're giving you authority to influence your spheres of influence with this guide. We poured so many hours into this, in vetting the candidates and making sure that these were candidates who weren't establishment, but actually were going to fight for you and for your liberty and against big government. So
that's right.
That's what this guide is. So my encouragement to you is to go download that thing, print out a bunch, and commit to getting every single one of those passed out. Some opportunities would be walking your neighborhood. When we were doing Freedom Revival, I was out until 9 o'clock just canvassing neighborhoods with those the flyers that we had, and I would tape them up on community mailboxes. That's a great way to get that in front of people. You can go to Costco parking lots, Target parking lots, any of your mommy play groups. Just think of creative ways, churches, anywhere where there are lots of people. So you get authority to educate people with this guide that we created. So don't let it stop with you. Keep passing that torch would be my encouragement.
Yeah, that's so great. And as well as make sure you guys are educating yourself on those candidates. Like take time, go to their websites, do a little research on them, get to know them, as well as listen to these Candidate Connects, which is perfect. So let's lead into what tonight we're bringing on Jonathan Peck. And we are so excited to have them because Jonathan Peck is a tenured officer in Southern California, and we'll give him an opportunity to kind of introduce himself. So let's go ahead and bring him in right now.
Did you tell everyone what he is running for?
I believe I did. I started with it, but let's tell him again. Right. You can't go wrong with saying it twice.
There you are.
Hey,
Mr.
how's it going?
Peck. We're so glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Absolutely.
All right. So before we go too far, I want to make sure that we introduce the race that you are in. You are running for sheriff in San Diego County. And if you can give us a little background, Jonathan, as to why you're running and what you're currently doing.
Well, I'm a current law enforcement officer. I've been doing it 19 years. I'm a beat cop. I go out, take care of my community every day. Put on the bulletproof vest, hope nothing happens, go out. And, my role is just protecting people. And that's what my passion is and where I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And then, I got kind of blindsided with a request from some community members to run for the sheriff position because they had interviewed the sheriff's candidates that were already filed, and they really didn't like what they saw. They didn't think they could trust them to uphold their rights. And so, I was really apprehensive because politics is not my deal. I leave that to the dirtbags, but it's
I think most of us have. That's why we've got more dirtbags.
Exactly. Yeah. But I've been telling my kids that these good people, we need good people to step up in these positions of power because we left them open for so long that all these not so great people took that power, and now we see the danger of that over the last 2 years. And so I realized I couldn't say no to this without being a hypocrite. So I'm going full force, and we're going to take this thing.
All right. So,
I have a question for you to jump on what you just said. Were there any specific situations or pieces of legislation or any orders that came down the pike that for you were that final straw of, I'm not going to sit back and let my life be dictated. I'm going to actually step in and get involved?
For me, it was what happened over COVID. And there was no legislation at all, but it was treated as if it was law. So we had these rules coming from Washington, D.C., first guidelines from the CDC, and then California Department of Public Health picked it up and gave their recommendations, and then the media picked it up as law and reported it as law. And then everyone at the top of law enforcement treated it as if it was law, and they ended up violating everybody's rights. And me being, on patrol during that time, I was telling people, hey, there are no laws. You don't have to do any of this stuff. But everyone just accepted it. It was really scary to me that our whole society accepted that, and it was all a complete violation of our God-given and constitutionally protected rights.
Come on. All right,
That's powerful.
I have this memory in my mind of a paddleboarder that was out in the middle of the water by himself, and this...
Don't we all? We all have that memory.
It's like ingrained in my mind. And what could you do to prevent that from happening again?
Well, why don't you tell people who don't know what happened, Sean, with that paddle? Because there may be some people who don't realize how insane it got.
Oh, it was terrible. So there was this, I believe this was up in LA County. There was a paddleboarder that was just out enjoying the ocean by himself. Obviously, there's nobody in sight but this guy. And it looked like a I don't know, California LAPD boat or something like that. Maybe it could have been a lifeguard boat, but they ended up detaining this individual and arresting him for paddleboarding during the middle of the lockdown. And I'm curious, what could the sheriff do of that county to prevent that from happening?
So that's the thing we all remember, and my biggest disappointment then was watching law enforcement do that, because it was so obviously a violation of, his rights. But it was, we're just following orders.
Right.
And that's so dangerous. And I the idealistic me likes to think that during those times we have enough people in law enforcement to say, no, we won't do that. But the reality is, that's not actually true. And we need somebody at the top to tell, their deputies, we're not going to enforce any unlawful, and it wasn't even laws. It was just, guidelines and rules that violate these people's rights.
Yes.
And it's absolutely, it's the top. It comes from the top. They need to tell their people, we will not do this, because you don't want the guy, just trying to pay his mortgage and take care of his kids. We don't want that guy having to make that decision.
So let me ask you a question with that. If you had been the sheriff of that imaginative community, let's just say it was some random county. We don't have to call
Let's say it's San Diego.
Let's just say this happens again, that we go into, the fall gets crazy again, and the mandates start coming down again, the orders start coming down. If you were in the position as sheriff of San Diego County, and there's some guy paddleboarding out in the ocean, and you're given the order that you've got to go get that guy out because he's in violation of whatever order has come down the pike, your position is that would be a violation of his rights. So if you were sheriff, what would you do?
Well, the great thing about the sheriff's office is the sheriff doesn't take orders. The sheriff's elected by the people and accountable to the people. And the sheriff can tell the president of the United States that, we're not going along with this. So what a good sheriff should have done when all the rules came out is go out publicly and say, these are not laws. We will not enforce these. It's up to it's your choice as a citizen whether or not you want to take these precautions, but none of this will be enforced because it is not law.
So good.
That's amazing.
That's why I want to pinpoint how absolutely important the role of sheriff in counties is. It gets overlooked. People, they look at all the big names like the glitz and glamour, but sheriff is such an important position because you have the power of the lesser magistrates, and that you are protecting the people, and you're standing between government overreach and the people. So this is an incredibly important electoral seat. And just hearing your answer makes me feel like it could have gone a lot differently had you been in office when all this was going down.
Absolutely. And in Riverside, their sheriff came out and said, we're not enforcing these things. And, now everyone in law enforcement looks up to him because he was the guy who did the right thing.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. So it makes me wonder, when you say that everyone looks up to him, in San Diego County, do you feel like deputies feel that they're protected and safe if they were to stand up for the constitutional liberties that are granted in the U.S. Constitution?
So right now there's such a massive disconnect between the tops of law enforcement, because they're basically politicians, and the people actually enforcing the law. And I think that's dangerous. It's up to the top to, protect their people from these things coming down from the politicians. It's just, if all else fails and all these laws in California pass, the sheriff is the last line of defense. And I can say, hey, we're not enforcing any of these because it violates these people's God-given, constitutionally protected rights.
So, let me jump in. I've got a great question.
Go for
this
it.
This is relevant.
I'll hold mine. I've got mine.
Please don't forget it, because I imagine it's incredible.
Go.
But there was an incident this week at the County Board of Supervisors where there was a woman detained and then arrested for clapping and cheering. And
yes.
there was a law in the book, I believe it's Penal Code 403, that they used to justify the detention of this woman. Now, is it possible that a deputy doesn't have to enforce that law? Because I spoke with the sergeant that was present at the County Board of Supervisors that day, and I said, why did you arrest her? And he said, I did everything I could to stop I didn't want to arrest her, but she wouldn't leave the building. Therefore, I was compelled and I was mandated to arrest her. But did he have to actually follow through with arresting that woman?
So it all started with that woman trying to air her grievances, which is protected by the First Amendment. And that the whole process of kicking her out happened so fast that it was absolutely not justified the way that happened. And then when the deputies get in there, they're not recognizing the violation of her rights that happened first. They're then going to, well, now she's disrupting a meeting. And they ignore that first part where her rights were violated. So a good sheriff, or, if I'm sheriff, I'm not going to call anybody bad, but if I'm sheriff, I'm going to tell my deputies that, hey, these people here at these meetings, they're exercising their First Amendment rights, and we can't be a part of violating those. And I absolutely believe her First Amendment rights were violated at that meeting.
So a sheriff can set the groundwork to say, I don't care what the legislator sitting on the bench states and tells you to do. I'm your direct authority. I am the head of the executive branch. We will not detain or arrest these individuals if they clap their hands or if they cheer.
Absolutely. And I think that's the sheriff's duty. Now, we all take an oath, when we get sworn in as peace officers, we take an oath to, uphold and defend the Constitution. And every single politician takes that same oath. And the problem is nobody's following that. But, I'm a man of my word, and I'll keep my oath. And I have, for 19 years in law enforcement, and intend to keep it that way.
Wow.
I love that you're such a straight shooter. You're just no nonsense.
Well, I'm not a politician.
I love it, and that's what we want. And that, you know what? I thank you for saying that, because that when we've been developing this voter guide, that's been something that we have been very intentional about, is not just picking from the establishment, but actually choosing people who are of the people, for the people, by the people. And that's very, very different than looking through picks from establishment, whether it's blue or red. So I'm thankful that you said that. And I think that we're coming into a season where that's where we're headed. And we want to get back to we the people versus these untouchables, these politicians. My question for you, and it goes really well with what Sean was just asking about, is I want you to clarify the relationship of the sheriff of a county with the county supervisors. Here in San Diego, just to give some background for people who don't understand the power play, we have a county supervisor we have a board who is dominated by extremists. And so pretty much we know when things are going to pass. You put a radical ordinance out and it's going to pass, because that's just what they do. We had during COVID, during all of the lockdowns, we just saw pretty terrifying suspension of liberties, where we had Wilma Wooten, who's our public health director, making all of these orders, and then the county supervisors just really not doing anything about it, which led to rehabs being shut down, churches being shut down, playgrounds. Like we had swings that were locked up. It was a mess. So what is the relationship of the sheriff with the Board of Supervisors in terms of checks and balances?
So the sheriff is a totally independent office, but it is funded by the Board of Supervisors. So that is their leverage over the sheriff's department. But what has to happen is, if I get in there, they're going to do everything to, get me out. And so what I need is the people to show up and make sure they don't defund the sheriff's department, because that is their leverage against me.
Well, that's exactly what they did to Villanueva in Los Angeles. Yeah. They cut his funding so heavily, I believe that they just had to fire 4,200 sheriffs, 4,200 deputies that they had to fire because of what the Board of Supervisors are doing in LA County.
But I think that's political suicide for them. And hopefully they'll be the example for us, and show that the people aren't going to put up with that, because our first responsibility as a government is to protect the people.
Right. Yes, which obviously they're not, nor are they protecting the rights of the people. And I believe that government has really taken this role of saying, we're supposed to be your parents, we're supposed to be your grandpa, we're going to give you candy, but in reality, we just want liberty. Like their role is to ensure that our rights are protected, and if they don't do that, that's where tyranny kind of births, and that's what's
and our rights come from God. We're born with them, and then we create government to protect them. So government is below the people, and well below God. And now these politicians are trying to take the place of God as the grantor of our rights. And we've been asleep so long that they've kind of gotten away with it, but now people are waking up and they're taking it back, and it's amazing to be a part of it. I'm so excited.
Hey, a question just popped up, and I think it's a good one from our friend Lou. And his question is, are there any concerns about jumping in at this point, so late in the race? I know that you weren't the first one to jump in for the role of sheriff. And so what are your thoughts on that? What do you feel as you're walking through this campaign trail?
Unfortunately, I filed on the last possible day, because a week before that, I'd never even considered this. So that's a big handicap is, everyone else is, a year to 8 months ahead of us. But, I'm watching, my opponents speak, and nobody cares. Like, nobody remembers what they're saying. And then I get up there and I'm getting applause when, I'm not expecting it. And the response I'm getting from the people is amazing, because I care about them, and I want to restore this county. Because my family and my kids grow up here. I want a future here, and I want to fight for it. And these other people, they're just, I don't want to say anything bad, but they're just status quo, and they're not going to be independent of the system. I'm in the system, but not of the system. And everybody else is, they're a part of it. And that's why there's so much excitement around me, especially among law enforcement, because they've never imagined anybody would step out like this, because it's very frowned upon from the top,
let me, there's a question coming in, but before we get to that, I just want to bring up the first time I actually saw you. I've heard your name, I've dug into you, but the first time I saw you was when you went to the county supervisors when they were voting on the new ordinance to change the language of woman to include men, which makes a lot of sense, right? This is all just idiotic. And I was so impressed, because here you go and you stand up there as a law enforcement officer, and we know that that's it's not kosher, but that's you stand up there and you let it fly. You spoke truth into it. You rejected what they were trying to do. You called them out on their woke agenda. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about why you were so passionate about this name change game that's going on right now in the current culture wars on language?
Well, I have 3 sisters, a mother, 2 daughters, a wife, countless family and friends that are women. And it seems like throughout COVID, the people who are stepping up are the women, and the men are kind of silent, unfortunately. And, to me, if me as a man and as law enforcement, if I can't step up to defend women, I think we're done as a society if people like me can't step up. There are no successful societies where the men don't defend the women. It's just, it has to be done. And, the Board of Supervisors went from, closing churches and businesses to redefining, your biology as women. And it's like, they do think they're God now, and somebody's got to step up, or, they're going to get away with it.
So on that, where do you believe true liberty flows from?
Good. That's a good question.
Well, from God. God creates us with our liberty, and it's up to us to stand up for it. And it's, we've been asleep. I know some people have been awake, but by and large, we've been asleep and we haven't claimed what was given to us by God. And a lot of that comes from just how comfortable our lives are. And it's a lot of the discomfort that came with COVID that's waking people up. And it's, it's a wonderful side effect of all that.
Yes.
I love
So
that.
good.
All right, so out of curiosity, I've been discussing your candidacy to individuals, and one of the things that I hear is that being that you are not in a superior of some sort in the sheriff's department, that you're not some head or chief on some police department, like I don't know, whatever police department. Do you
Yeah.
need to have superior? Like, do you need to be a sergeant? I don't even know what the freaking chiefs to be able to be a sheriff, to be able to manage so many people.
Is?
Yeah, I don't know the ranking system, man. Does that just show how ignorant I am? Forgive me, I'm ignorant.
This is good. This is how we get informed. We ask questions like this.
Do you need to be of like leadership rank to be able to step in as sheriff who's the top of the county? Because it seems that's the greatest concern.
No, so you only have to have certain amount of experience in law enforcement. It doesn't matter the rank.
Okay.
And what people, what I'm telling people, because obviously it's a concern because I've never run a sheriff's department before.
That's right.
But my answer is you have two choices. You have a choice. These people, they're professional resume builders. And once they climb to a certain level, they owe everyone below them, or help them get there. Yeah. And so they can't say these things I'm saying. So you basically have a choice between somebody who's beholden to that system or somebody who's completely outside of it, who maybe doesn't have the same amount of experience. But, as sheriff, it's my job to have the people already in place to continue doing their management jobs and just tell them basically what we're not going to do to the people that, has been done in the past.
Wow. Dude, that's such a great answer. My God, that gave me so much joy. It reminded me of there was a dialogue between me and the other Republican candidate. And it was interesting because you could see that there are these boundaries where he wasn't willing to engage in specific ideas, or if you challenge his stance on guns and realize that the man doesn't like the opportunity for citizens to be armed to protect themselves from government, because really we need arms to ensure when the government is corrupted, we're capable of stopping them. They're not for hunting. They're for protecting our rights from government. And the sheriff is supposed to ensure that we're capable of doing that. And hearing that other candidate discuss it, that was frightening, the boundaries that he had. Like, he wasn't a free man. And that's scary.
And that's what comes from climbing that ladder, is you're not free anymore. And, I'm telling everybody, I want everybody who wants to be carrying their own gun. And I don't want them to ask permission from the government to do it, because that's not in the Second Amendment. There's nothing in there about asking permission. And, of course, you need to be trained on it. You need to be, it's a tool. It's a dangerous tool. You need to know how to use it. But I want people out there capable of defending themselves or defending me if I'm in trouble.
Yes.
Hold on that topic. I know you're probably going to do the same thing that I am, but what is your stance on the CCW?
Yes.
Because it's kind of difficult to get one right now.
So I want to make it absolutely as easy and quick as possible.
To get a concealed carry license. For those people that don't know, concealed carry.
Yeah. So any law-abiding citizen that's eligible to carry a weapon, basically somebody who's not out on parole or, something like that, I want to make it as easy as possible for them to get a gun and carry it. And part of the problem now is everyone's leaving law enforcement because over the last 2 years it became a job nobody wants to do, and we can't replace these people. And so the crime rates are going up, and they're going to continue to go up, and it's that much more important for people to be able to defend themselves.
That's a good word.
Yes. So we talked about the Second Amendment. Another big issue is the First Amendment, and just the boundary lines that are being, or not even boundary, the encroachment of government on the First Amendment. So can you just talk to us a little bit about your position on what the First Amendment secures for us and how you will protect that as a sheriff of San Diego County?
Yeah, when the COVID lockdown started and they said we're going to close churches, I laughed and said, "There's no way anybody's going to close a church. That's the most obvious violation of the First Amendment." And and then all the churches closed. I was so disappointed. That to me is a lack of faith. Closing a church, you have to always be available because that's your purpose. And I couldn't believe that everyone just rolled over and said, well, the government said we got to close. And they take these cases to court, and the courts say, of course you didn't have to close. And they overturn these things. But like, why didn't you assert that right in the first place? And the churches who did stay open, they grew like crazy.
That's right.
They're so powerful now because, that boldness, the boldness and bravery is what we're missing in our society. And I was just so disappointed in all those churches.
That's beautiful.
So I want you to talk real quick because I know we're wrapping up, and people are going to see your name on the ballot. They're also going to see other names on the ballot. And so just to be really raw, I want you to tell people why they should vote for you and not vote for the others that are on the ballot for Sheriff of San Diego County.
We saw over the last 2 years, the government thinks they can suspend our rights in the name of an emergency. And I don't think there's anyone else on the ballot who will step up if that happens again and say, no, absolutely not. We're not going to do that. And I will absolutely do that. I'm willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to make sure that I protect those rights for all the people and for the future. We're at such a turning point here where it's either, we let them take these rights or we stand up and say, no, we're taking them back. And I will absolutely stand up, and I don't believe anyone else will.
Wow.
That's pretty important delineation between and I would second that.
Yes.
And that's why people need to remember your name, Jonathan Peck, for Sheriff of San Diego County.
Yes, absolutely. That's so well said. I'm so grateful that you said that, Jonathan. How can people get connected with you? What can people do to help your campaign?
How can they volunteer? That's a question that we've got popped up right now. How can people volunteer and get involved?
So if you go to my website, you can go pickpeck, pickpeck.vote. That'll get you there. Also by Instagram, you can get there through there. If you want to email me, we have a little thing at the bottom of the website. You can get to the email and just ask questions or whatever. And if you want to help, we'll email you back, and we'll start with giving you flyers, yard signs. We want people to share these things with as many people as possible, electronically. Just blast it out to everyone and let them know, because most people have no idea who's in a sheriff's race, so they just kind of go by name recognition or something like that. So if we get these people who have their ballots at home sitting there, and somebody they know, friend, a coworker, tells them, hey, vote for this guy, he wants to protect your rights, that's a huge deal. So just get on the website, contact me, and I'll start giving you jobs to do.
That's so great.
It's so good. And then just a reminder too, for everyone who's hanging out, Jonathan is who we have endorsed emphatically. We're so excited about. And so if you go to freedomrevival.org, the main screen is our huge voter guide, and it's downloadable, and you can print that and pass that thing out to everyone, all your spheres of influence. And Jonathan Peck is right there as our endorsed candidate for sheriff.
Yes, and I want to make sure that people understand that we chose Jonathan Peck to endorse him because we spoke with the other candidates, because we recognize that there are no other candidates that are standing so firmly for the sake of constitutional liberty like Jonathan Peck. And we are urging you guys to get involved to ensure a man of the people can get in and ruffle and flip over tables with these establishment politicians who are taking away our liberty. This is the time to get engaged. And another thing that we've got to do is also work the polls. May 28th, the polls open. They close on the day of the election, June 7th. And you still have time to go and volunteer to work the polls. You can work at the drop boxes where you can, or drop boxes where you can watch them. Like they hire people to stand there and watch them, observe them, as well as you can take the ballots to the registrar of voters. Another position would be that you can be a technical inspector. You can work inside the voting center. Please get involved. You can no longer sit back and expect somebody else to preserve your liberty. The United States is the way that it is because we've done that, but it became this bastion of liberty because citizens got engaged, and we need to do it again. Just like Jonathan Peck, he's running for an elected position as a citizen that said, I've got to do something.
Hey, while we close out here, Jonathan, I want to give you just a few minutes to close us out, unless you have any other questions, Sean. But I want to give you the opportunity, Jonathan, to remind people what you're passionate about, what your focus is going to be, and why people need to support you and vote for you on June 7th as Sheriff of San Diego County?
Yeah, what I'm doing is kind of unprecedented because nobody wants to put their career on the line to try to do this for people. And so, the more successful I am, the more you're protecting me. So, I want my kids to have the same opportunities I've had here in San Diego County. And the way things are going now, it's not going to happen. And at some point down the road, we're all going to be asked by some child we love, what did you do when our rights, started to be taken away, or when I was redefined as not a woman anymore? And everyone's going to have to answer that question at some point. And I want to be able to say, this is what I did. Maybe I lost my job. Maybe, who knows, maybe somebody attacked me physically, but I want to be able to say, what, I did something and I did my best, and, I want to secure a future for you. And I'm just, I would rather, I'd rather be homeless than have to explain to a child that I did nothing while their rights were taken away.
Come on.
Amen. That is so good. So good.
Yeah.
So once again, this is Jonathan Peck for San Diego County Sheriff. Jonathan, can you tell people how they can find you, and then we'll close it out?
Yeah, if you go to pickpeck, pickpeck.vote, that'll be the website, and that'll link you to everything. Or you can go on the Instagram here and find us that way too.
And then for anyone who is listening to this and has made it this far, share this video. Go grab our voter guide, download it. That's a great way to get Jonathan Peck in front of people, because name recognition is the name of the game right now as we creep up to June 7th. So let's do this. Let's get activated. Let's get boots on the ground, and let's get Jonathan Peck in the role of Sheriff for San Diego County. This is the lion that we need in this seat for this time.
Come on, let's go. And if you're not from San Diego County, you have the ability to share the voter guide and share this video. So don't think that if you're in like LA County, Ventura County, San Bernardino County, you're not effective to help Sheriff Peck, or to help Jonathan Peck to get in, future Sheriff Peck
Sheriff
to get in.
Peck has a good ring.
Thank you.
Because
you
guys have the authority. You have the ability. It's all about, like what Britt said, name recognition. We're so grateful for you being on, Jonathan. We look forward to connecting with you more, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.